It's time now for a look at the press today. And Litsa Gadeva, you've been looking at the latest from the Russian media.
That's right, Oliver. So let's start by taking a look at Russian independent paper Meduza that reports that the Russian Ministry of Defense has published a list of companies in Europe that allegedly produce drones for Ukraine. And the Ministry of Defense said that these companies could be, quote, potential targets for the Russian armed forces. And the list includes 11 companies, for instance, in London, Riga and Prague. And Dmitry Medvedev himself tweeted about that, saying that the statements must be taken literally and that when strikes become a reality depends on what comes next, adding, sleep well, European partners, a warning there from Medvedev. And then moving to Novaya Gazeta, another independent Russian paper that looks at how Russia is taking care of its veterans. And the government claims that it's spending billions of rubles per year to support those who have fought in the war in Ukraine. But many of them are now physically and psychologically broken. And they've spoken anonymously with Novaya Gazeta, and they speak of broken promises and quote, cold indifference. So Novaya Gazeta, for example, interviewed a Russian who worked as a surgeon, and he enlisted in the Russian military hoping that he could help fellow Russians at hospitals. And he was promised he'd serve in a hospital for 3 months, but he ended up at the front with a motorized rifle in his hands. And instead of serving 3 months, he did a year and a half of military service, Oliver.
And staying in Russia, after months of internet disruptions across the country, the government is cracking down on VPNs.
That's right. The Moscow Times here reports that Russian websites, quote, begin blocking VPN users. And it writes that the government is ramping up its efforts to restrict the internet. And VPN, of course, stands for virtual private networks. And those are widely used across Russia to access Western social media websites or Russian independent media like the Moscow Times itself, because those have been banned by the Kremlin. And CBC News here focuses on another thing that's been targeted by the Kremlin, the erotic romance-heated rivalry. So a local Russian agency was fined more than $6,000 after publishing a review of the hit queer series, and a Russian press officer confirmed that the fines were laid because the series is considered LGBT propaganda, which was actually banned by Putin in 2022.
And moving on, some nursing homes are using new tools to help with loneliness.
That's right. It's a big feature article here by the New York Times that talks about the use of VR or virtual reality to counter social isolation. So residents in a nursing home, like here, for example, go on virtual trips. Here they are in Barcelona, and that's a way to counter loneliness through social experiences. And the New York Times writes that loneliness and isolation are very dangerous for old people. And studies show that social disconnection can have the same impact on mortality as smoking, up to 15 cigarettes per day. And isolation is also associated with a 50% increased risk of dementia. So this is a great way for the elderly to socialize. And VR also helps with mobility here, because inside the virtual world, the elderly move like they would move in real life.
And next to a heartwarming story where Punch the Monkey won hearts online, but you've spotted a story about another animal rising to fame.
That's right. Well, the Times, the headline here reads, "Meet the baby elephant that could unseat Punch the Monkey." So this is the little elephant here. She is called Lin May, and just like Punch, she has a sad background story. Basically, she was abandoned and abused by her mother when she was a baby, but good news for us. Now she has found a loving surrogate mother, and they both live at the National Zoo in Washington, Oliver.
And finally, you have a story of sharp practices on the beaches of Rio de Janeiro.
That's right. It's one of many from Rio de Janeiro, but The Guardian here reports that a British tourist paid £1,500. This is a bit more than 1,700 euros for a kebab on Copacabana beach. So the scammer allegedly manipulated the payment terminal in order to overcharge the lost tourist. He was then arrested, but this is only one example out of many. Perhaps the most shocking case after the kebab was an Argentinian woman who paid more than 3,000 euros for corn with a bit of butter. So she was supposed to pay €3, but you know, it's expensive corn in Rio de Janeiro. And after falling for the scam, she said, quote, "I didn't understand numbers in Portuguese."
Oh, a likely story. Well, take care if you're ever in Rio and buying